There's a lot of advice out there on how to best learn vocabulary. Some of these strategies are effective, while others aren't. In this video, I'll be ranking these strategies on this tier list, with S tier at the top for the most effective strategies and D tier at the bottom for the least effective. Now you might be asking, why should I listen to you? Well, as someone who learned Mandarin Chinese as an adult, I understand the challenges of mastering new vocabulary. Plus, I'm a licensed ESL teacher with a master's degree in TESOL and over 15 years of experience teaching English to learners like you. The first strategy we'll rank is labeling items with sticky notes. When you first started learning English or any other language, someone might have suggested labeling things in your home with sticky notes. While this can help you remember the names of these objects, it has its limitations. You can't use this strategy outside of your home. You can't just go around labeling things around your city or covering your workplace in sticky notes. And if you share your living space with others, like family or roommates, they might not appreciate sticky notes everywhere. Since this strategy only works for certain words and might annoy the people you live with, I'm placing this in the D tier. Next, let's talk about language exchanges. These provide learners with the chance to practice speaking and listening skills with native speakers of their target language, the one they're learning, in exchange for helping others learn their own native language. While language exchanges offer valuable real-world communication practice and cultural exchange, they aren't always accessible or suitable for everyone, and the effectiveness of these exchanges depends on the willingness and availability of your language partner, as well as how compatible your learning goals are. Although language exchanges can boost language skills and cultural understanding, they require significant effort to find the right partner and maintain consistent practice. And in my experience, you won't learn new vocabulary as effectively as you would in a well-structured language class or book series. While some people swear by language exchanges, everyone I've spoken to who recommends them is already at a C1 level and typically just looking for friends rather than real language improvement. For these reasons, I'm placing this strategy in the C tier. But if you've had experience with language exchanges and have significantly improved your vocabulary, let me know about it in the comments. If you want to build connections between words you already know and new ones, learning related words can be a highly effective strategy. By linking new words to familiar ones, you make them easier to remember and use. One approach is to learn word groups that share a similar meaning or topic. For example, words like travel, journey, trip, and adventure form a web that reinforces their meanings and usage in real-life situations. Additionally, learning different forms of a word, such as create as a verb, while also learning creation as a noun, creative as an adjective, and creatively as an adverb, helps you express ideas more flexibly. This strategy not only improves your communication skills, but also expands your vocabulary, making you a more accurate and confident speaker and writer. Because I've seen this method work so well for many students, I'm placing it in the S tier. The next strategy I picked up from a popular YouTube channel. The creator shared a tip for learning words that can be used in compliments. The idea is simple. Choose one word each day and use it in compliments. For example, if your word of the day is diligent, which means hardworking, you could start your day by saying, "Good morning, Bob. Thanks for being such a diligent worker." Later, you might tell your sales manager, "Great job leading the team to record sales, Marina. You're such a diligent manager." And when you see your coworker cleaning the microwave, you could say, "Hey, Kevin, thanks for keeping the break room clean. You're so diligent." This approach helps you reinforce the word by using it in different contexts throughout the day. While this method can help you remember new words, it has its downsides. People might find it repetitive when they overhear you using your word of the day again and again, and think you sound odd for repeating it over and over again. Because this strategy is limited to compliments and can make you seem odd if overused, I rate it as a D tier strategy. Now let's talk about listening to English language podcasts or music as a strategy for learning vocabulary. Listening to podcasts or music exposes you to vocabulary in natural contexts, not just individual words, but how they fit into spoken sentences, helping you understand how they're used in conversation. You also get to hear speakers with different accents, slang, colloquialisms, and cultural references that textbooks often miss. This exposure improves listening comprehension, pronunciation, and intonation, all of which are essential for fluent communication. However, this strategy is more passive than active strategies. What I mean by passive is that while you're hearing new words, you aren't actively practicing or engaging with them, which makes it harder to retain or remember that vocabulary. Without additional focus or practice, you might miss the meaning of unfamiliar words or phrases. Also, the difficulty level of context can vary, making it harder for beginners to understand or remember vocabulary from more complex materials. Overall, listening to English podcasts or music is great for learning vocabulary in context and developing listening skills, but it works best when combined with more active, targeted learning strategies. That's why I'm placing this in the B tier. Have you ever been to a language class where at the start of a new unit, the instructor handed you a list of vocabulary words and simply told you to memorize them? I see this all the time at my school. Students walking around with lists of seemingly unrelated vocabulary items and their Chinese translations, cramming for an upcoming exam. Usually these words are remembered just long enough to pass the test, but they aren't internalized or used naturally after that. Memorizing word lists is a common but inefficient way to learn vocabulary. While it might help you recognize individual words, it doesn't help you understand their meanings, usage, or nuances. Without connections to real-world contexts, these words are often quickly forgotten. Language is best learned through meaningful exposure and practice, not through rote memorization. Without context, it's hard to recall or use memorized words correctly in conversation or writing. So while memorization can be a helpful supplement, relying solely on word lists is not an effective strategy. That's why I'm placing this in the D tier. Our next strategy, read more. Reading exposes you to a wide range of vocabulary and context, showing you how words are used alongside others in real-world situations. Encountering words in meaningful contexts makes them easier to remember and helps you understand their nuances. Reading also improves comprehension skills and exposes you to various writing styles, genres, and topics, all of which contribute to your overall language development. When choosing reading materials, pick something that interests you. Like love stories, try a romance novel. Into sports, grab a sports magazine. Fascinated by wizards and magic, get a fantasy book. Most importantly, make sure the reading level is manageable. I always tell my students to choose materials where they only need to look up one word every 2 to 3 sentences. This keeps the reading enjoyable without being overwhelming. Because reading is a much more active process than, say, listening to a podcast, and it immerses you in vocabulary in a natural way, I'm placing it in the S tier as one of the best strategies for learning vocabulary. Now let's explore a strategy that requires minimal effort and frankly offers little reward: translation. While using translation can quickly help you understand the meaning of unfamiliar words, whether through your phone's camera with Google Translate or browser extensions that provide instant translation, it comes with significant drawbacks. Relying only on translation is a passive approach to learning, where you look up words without actively engaging with their meanings or usage. This can result in a shallow understanding and poor retention or memory of this vocabulary. Moreover, translations may not always capture the nuances of words, as different languages have unique cultural contexts that translations can miss. Overdependence on translation can slow down your fluency and your ability to think directly in the target language. Therefore, while translation can be a helpful tool when it's rarely used, relying exclusively on it for vocabulary learning is not ideal. For these reasons, I'm placing translation in the D tier. Our next strategy is watching television programs or entertainment videos, whether it's Netflix, YouTube, or any other platform you enjoy. Watching TV exposes you to vocabulary in natural, conversational contexts, helping you understand how words and phrases are used in everyday language, including idioms, slang, and cultural references. Similar to listening to podcasts or music, it enhances listening comprehension and familiarizes you with pronunciation, intonation, and natural speech patterns. Additionally, TV shows and movies can make learning enjoyable and motivating for many learners. However, it's important to note that watching TV is a passive learning activity. Without active engagement like taking notes or discussing the content, you may struggle to remember or fully understand the new vocabulary. Advanced content can be particularly challenging, as you might find it difficult to follow along. Furthermore, TV shows focus on storytelling rather than vocabulary instruction. So while you may encounter new words, you'll need to seek out explanations and create your own practice activities on your own. Therefore, like podcasts and music, I'm placing watching TV in the B tier. It can be a valuable tool for learning vocabulary, especially understanding context and improving listening skills, but it is most effective when combined with more active and targeted learning strategies. Now, let's rate learning collocations. Collocations are natural combinations of words that frequently occur together, such as make a decision or heavy rain. Learning these word chunks is an effective strategy for learning vocabulary because it helps you understand how words are typically used in context, enhancing both comprehension and fluency. When you know which words commonly go together, you avoid awkward or unnatural expressions, making it easier to grasp the meaning of spoken and written texts. Memorizing words in chunks rather than in isolation strengthens memory by creating meaningful associations, while also adding variety and nuance to your speaking and writing. Familiarity with common word combinations boosts confidence and reduces hesitation, leading to more fluent and accurate language use. For example, in this previous video, I discussed the adjective minute. Instead of merely learning that it means very small, you would also learn it alongside the words it commonly collocates with, such as minute detail, minute difference, minute amount, and minute change. This way, you can use the word accurately in context. Collocations help you produce more fluent and natural-sounding sentences, reducing the chances of awkward or incorrect word combinations. They enhance both writing and speaking skills. Moreover, words learned in chunks are often remembered better than isolated words because the associations or connections are stronger. That's why I'm ranking learning collocations as an A-tier strategy. While it's highly effective, I wouldn't place it in the S tier as it may not provide a comprehensive understanding of the vocabulary on its own. This next strategy works well for some people, but not for others. Learning word etymology. Etymology is the study of the origins of words and how they have evolved or changed in form and meaning over time. It examines roots, prefixes, and suffixes, tracing their history back to earlier languages. This understanding can help learners grasp deeper meanings and recognize patterns among related vocabulary. For instance, knowing that ben means good in Latin can clarify English words like beneficial, benevolent, and benign. However, studying etymology can be time-consuming and less efficient, particularly for beginners who may need more immediate and practical vocabulary. Additionally, not all words or expressions can be easily understood through etymology, especially idioms and phrasal verbs, which often have meanings that don't match their individual parts. Overall, while learning word etymology is valuable for building a strong, related vocabulary base, it is most effective when combined with other strategies that provide context and practical usage. For these reasons, I'm placing it in the C tier for vocabulary learning. Some may rank it as high as a B or an A tier strategy, but for many students I've encountered, it requires too much effort for the rewards it offers. Perhaps you've been in a language classroom and your teacher asked you to use a new vocabulary word to create an example sentence. This can be very effective if your sentences are meaningful, meaning they actually show you know what the word means, and they are personal to you. You have to have a personal connection with what is written. Using this strategy helps you actively use new words in context, making them easier to understand and remember. When you create your own sentences, you connect the new word to your personal experience or interests, which makes it more memorable. For example, if you're learning the word astronaut, writing a sentence like she's an astronaut doesn't help because it doesn't demonstrate meaning and you don't have any personal connection with this sentence. But a sentence like my niece wants to become an astronaut because she wants to explore space is an excellent sentence because it demonstrates the meaning of the word and you have a personal connection to the sentence. It's about your own niece. Doing this will help you remember new vocabulary words and use them confidently in the future. Creating meaningful sentences is a highly effective strategy for vocabulary learning, so I'm placing this in our S tier. The next strategy on our tier list is the use of mnemonics, which are memory aids that help you remember information by associating new concepts with familiar patterns, images, words, or phrases. In vocabulary learning, mnemonics often involve creating a memorable story, phrase, or rhyme, or visual image that relates to the meaning, sound, or spelling of the word, making it easier to recall later. For instance, if you want to remember the word gregarious, meaning sociable or fond of company, you might imagine a person named Greg who is always at parties and social gatherings. You could think, Greg is always gregarious. This mental image of Greg being sociable helps reinforce both the word gregarious and its meaning. Since mnemonics are personally created, they become more memorable and meaningful. However, while mnemonics are excellent for memorization, they often lack context on how to use words correctly in sentences or real-life situations. Additionally, creating effective mnemonics can be time-consuming, and they may not be practical when you need to remember a large number of vocabulary items. Therefore, I'm ranking mnemonics as an A-tier strategy, but I would definitely recommend using them selectively, primarily when other strategies haven't worked. Another strategy in which how it ranks is really what you make of it is keeping a vocabulary journal. Keeping a vocabulary journal involves writing new words along with their meanings, usage examples, and personal notes. This practice encourages you to engage with vocabulary actively, reinforcing memory and understanding. Writing down words helps imprint them in memory and provides a reference for review and practice. Additionally, organizing vocabulary in a journal allows you to track your progress, identify patterns, and prioritize words for further study. By regularly updating and editing your vocabulary journals, you can build a robust and personalized vocabulary repertoire. A journal allows you to document new words in a personalized way, which can enhance retention by making the learning experience more relevant and meaningful. Having a dedicated space for vocabulary makes it easier to review and reinforce learning, especially if the journal is organized by themes, contexts, or word types. However, maintaining a vocabulary journal requires consistent effort and time, which may be challenging for some learners, and the effectiveness of a journal largely depends on your own discipline, creativity, and consistency in using it. Overall, a vocabulary journal is a useful tool for organizing and actively engaging with new vocabulary, but it is most effective when combined with other strategies like reading and spaced repetition to provide more context and practical usage. I would rank keeping a vocabulary journal as a B-tier strategy, but for some learners this could be as high as an S-tier strategy depending on the effort you put into it. Now let's discuss the new kid on the block, AI. I'll begin by exploring how to use ChatGPT as a vocabulary learning tool, followed by its benefits as a learning strategy. Learners can use ChatGPT in several effective ways. First, you can ask for definitions and examples. For instance, you might ask, what does the word serendipity mean? Followed by, can you provide some example sentences? This approach helps you grasp meanings and understand how words are used in context. Additionally, you can request synonyms and antonyms to expand your vocabulary around a specific word, which enhances your understanding of word families and adds variety to your speaking and writing. Another great feature is the ability to generate personalized mnemonics for challenging vocabulary, making the process of memorization more enjoyable. For further practice, you can ask ChatGPT to create exercises such as fill in the blanks, matching, or multiple choice quizzes, which can reinforce learning. As you dive deeper into vocabulary, you can use AI to generate example dialogues. For instance, you could say, can you write a dialogue between two friends discussing their weekend plans using the words spontaneous, plan, and deliberate? You can even request feedback on your own writing. I consider using ChatGPT for vocabulary learning as an A-tier strategy. It offers a highly personalized learning experience adjusting to your specific needs, interests, and proficiency level, something traditional methods often lack. You also receive immediate answers, explanations, and examples, which effectively clarify doubts and reinforce learning in real time. Moreover, ChatGPT can provide rich context for vocabulary use by generating dialogues, scenarios, and example sentences, helping you understand how words are used naturally and correctly. However, one significant drawback is the potential to over-rely on using this tool, which can harm your overall language development. Next on our list is the classic strategy of using flashcards combined with spaced repetition. While it may seem old-fashioned, creating flashcards can significantly aid in remembering new vocabulary. The way you design your flashcards is entirely up to you. Many learners find it helpful to include the word on one side and on the other side, its part of speech, along with an English definition, preferably in your own words, and maybe a translation. However, simply creating flashcards isn't enough. You must regularly review them until you have memorized the new words and feel comfortable and confident using them in real-life situations. This is where spaced repetition comes in. With spaced repetition, new vocabulary is reviewed more frequently at first and then less and less often as time progresses. For instance, after creating your flashcards, you might review the words an hour later, then again later that day, followed by a review 2 days later, then a week later, and so on. 15 days later, 30 days later, 45 days later, and finally 60 days later after you first created your cards. If you find that you haven't memorized a word by any of these checkpoints, simply restart the review process, beginning again an hour later and then later that day, and continuing at these spaced intervals. For those who prefer a digital approach, I highly recommend Anki, an app that allows you to create electronic flashcards that use spaced repetition to enhance learning. Given its years of proven effectiveness, I rank using flashcards, whether handwritten or digital, along with spaced repetition to be an S-tier strategy for vocabulary acquisition. Remember, the effectiveness of each vocabulary learning strategy can vary from person to person, so it's crucial to discover what works best for you. Don't hesitate to experiment with different methods and combine them to create a personalized vocabulary learning plan that fits your needs. If you have any questions or thoughts about these strategies, or if there's a method you believe should be included, please share it in the comments below. See you in the future!